Vanessa, you have so much stuff going on. I am so excited to be interviewing you today because you've got a lot of stuff. And so, like, I want to talk about all your stuff. So, but first, let's get into your background. What is it that you do? Who are you? Where are you from?
Okay, so I live in North Carolina, but I'm not from North Carolina. I was in the Army, and my husband's still serving on active duty in the Army, and so that's what brought us to North Carolina because there's a massive military base. I think it's the largest in the world, called Fort Bragg. Anyways, and that's how I ended up here. But before that, I had never lived in North Carolina. I have no family here, nothing, and I ended up going to graduate school here for my behavioral health related degree and started basically my behavioral health related career. For the most part, it's been in North Carolina. And so I've been working out here steadily pretty much since then. And I own a private practice now called Carolina Addiction and Anger Management because I specialize in addiction and anger management because I was doing a lot of that work for my former employers. I found I really enjoyed it. And so here I am. But yeah, that's kind of the short rundown version of how I ended up here in North Carolina.
Now, did you always know that you wanted to be a therapist? Like, is that something that you knew growing up that you wanted to be?
Well, I didn't know what a therapist, counselor, behavioral health clinician even was growing up. So no, because I didn't know what that, I had no concept
Yeah.
of what that was. What I was exposed to was nursing. I had relatives that were different types of nurses. And so I actually grew up thinking because I spent time like in a nursing home as a kid, because my grandmother worked there, thinking, oh, I'll be like a nurse when I grow up. And I actually thought I'd be a psychiatric nurse. And I thought about working in prisons as a nurse. So I kind of had behavioral health care in my mind, but I didn't know what the paths were. And in my opinion, this field is so convoluted, especially with the different state requirements, that even now it amazes me how many different paths there are to get to kind of the work we're doing. Like there's art therapy, evidently, or licenses, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found one by accident locally here. So that was, it's always something new. But it's a lot more straightforward, I feel like, for doctors, pharmacists, lawyers. But behavioral health, there's just so many different paths and licenses, and I don't even feel like it's very well covered, even for people in the field.
Mm. Now, what made you change your mind from psychiatric nurse to like becoming a therapist?
I went to nursing school.
Ah, okay.
I went to nursing school and I just didn't like what I saw. I went to the LPN school.
Hmm.
The school I went to really wasn't the best. And this was when we're talking like 19 years old. I was very young. This was many moons ago. And, there's a lot of things I saw I didn't like. One of the things I didn't like was the volume of medications that were being dispensed on the med surge floors on a routine basis. By the time people were 60 years old, it seemed, based upon charts, that they were on between 20 to 40 different meds. And they were having a lot of different interactions with the meds. Once you get past a few meds, it's almost like you're very high risk to have an interaction. And, I saw doctors not spending really a lot of time with their patients. They're in and out of those rooms very quickly. Nurses had a lot of health issues of being on their feet too much, low quality of life, had their own behavioral health care related issues in a lot of cases. I was very young seeing this, so I didn't really register all what I was seeing, but looking back, like I'm able to put those pieces together now. And I was really put off by that experience and just felt intuitively like that just wasn't the right decision for me. It wasn't the right path for me. And I'm really glad I actually didn't go down the path. Nothing against nursing or anything like that, but I just think that, I know a lot of nurses. I've worked with a psychiatric nurse in my a while back. And, it just I just didn't think that was the path for me. And I still don't think that was. So I'm really glad I ended up kind of detouring off and finding this later in life.
And it's interesting because you've written a book on self-care for behavioral health clinicians. Do you think like some of your history with like seeing that stuff kind of played into the book?
It may have, but I think, well, because I actually worked with, now I think about another psychiatric nurse in behavioral healthcare work I was doing, and she actually died on the job, and I actually covered that in the book. I don't mention, it's non-descriptive or anything, the information in the book, but I remember leading up to her death, was enduring a lot of workplace bullying in a former job inside the organization. And she was very stressed out. She was very unhealthy, unhealthy diet, unhealthy lifestyle, not enough exercise. She was in therapy, I remember, trying to kind of deal with her own issues from the workplace bullying. And it was a pretty toxic situation inside the organization. It was a large organization, which I'm not going to say the name of, although most
Mhm.
people would know. And, I actually resigned my position from the organization, but I remember that a number of weeks after I left, I heard from another nurse I knew that the person had had a heart attack and died on the job.
Oh my gosh.
And I
Wow.
100% believe it was stress related.
Hmm.
And so experiences such as that, which were pretty trying experiences, even though I wasn't there when it happened, I was long gone, but I was really friendly with the person and I really liked them. And, it just really drove home that you really can't take care of anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself. In the behavioral healthcare field, I talk about mental health sweatshops in the book. There's a whole chapter on that. And basically, it's these agencies that work people to death
Hmm.
and that really prey upon people that are trying fresh out of school, trying to get experience. And there's not a focus on true self-care, of having time to really have time between clients, especially if you've had a difficult session, have time to truly rest, to do all the stuff we have to do in this field of our training and continuing education and on and on. And so those experiences are really motivated me over time to write the book because I feel it's a topic that's overlooked far too often and isn't enough time isn't spent on the nuts and bolts of how to take care of yourself and what's involved in that.
I like that term, like the therapeutic sweatshop, because I mean, it really does. Because when I started my practice, I'm like, when we get out of college here where I live, it's like you have like three options and you are worked 40 hours and you're expected to see like 60 people a week. And it's like, how is that an experience after you get out of college? And that's the only option you have because otherwise, you can't get paid from insurance companies because you still had to do these 2 years of hours and stuff like that. It's like, and
Hmm.
that's why I wanted to create my group practice to actually give them a good experience after college and have that ability to do self care because 40 people a week is a lot of people to like be able to sit with. And I do think that that population has been abused right out of college for us.
Hmm. And I think it becomes acceptable almost, and the people, they become conditioned to where that's acceptable. And I think that's why you see a lot of people washing out. A lot of industries, our industry is one of them, but nursing is another one where people wash out within 5 years of graduating, never to return. A lot of people, a lot of industries, but ours is definitely one of them. And I think that's one of the reasons is because, they get that bad taste in their mouth. And for me, opening up my own company was a way to provide the best quality services for clients while
Hmm.
taking care of myself. And that really wasn't happening with other employers because, the money matters, the bottom line matters, but so do other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That should not be the only variable at play. And it was too often, even
Hmm.
at these so-called not-for-profits. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's with like all my courses and stuff. I said, build a lifestyle that works for you by starting your private practice and making it profitable because you can take a nap in the middle of the day and take care of yourself. And then, if you need to leave for 2 days and go to Las Vegas, you've created a practice that allows you to do that. And so I
Mhm.
think that's so important for other behavioral health practitioners to know. So it's great. And what is the name of your book?
Burnout self-care for behavioral health clinicians. Yeah, and I looked because I wrote the books, I was looking for books like this and I couldn't find any. I found like one burnout book for doctors. It was
Hmm.
focused just on doctors. But I really didn't see any that were for behavioral health clinicians at all. And so I pretty much was kind of almost documenting my own self-care journey to some extent and practical life hacks. And some of the things I documented, which I talk about in the book, is just one of the ways I kept my head above water working for other people was I started, thank God, technology. I started getting meal service delivered to my home, like the meal prep plans. I had like
We
organic
have
ones.
that too. Yes.
And I tell you, for months and months and months, it helped me. I don't know what I would have done without it because I didn't have time to go grocery shopping and meal planning. And I had really healthy meals that way. And it was delivered regularly and it was great customer service. And I was just thrilled with it. And then I also had, I hired people to come in. I was able to schedule it online to clean my home once a week because I had at the time 3 dogs and a significant other, and my house was just getting trashed. And I was too exhausted to come home after the longest day on earth, dealing with, I was at a crisis place at the time, dealing with crisis, people being involuntarily committed, suicidal, homicidal, than to come home and clean for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, it just wasn't realistic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are a couple of things I kind of cover, is like the how, because it's always nice to say, oh, take care of yourself. But it's like, what does that mean exactly? What does that look like?
And I know for me, one of the things is getting a full length couch so that I can take a nap.
You're big on naps, I can
I am
tell.
like almost every day, and my assistant would be like, "Do you need a nap?" And I'm like, "Yes." And I'll go lay down for 20 minutes. And
My
she knows to
husband's
like
big on
have every day.
naps.
Yeah, I am like a nap professional. I can fall asleep pretty much anywhere. And so you have the book, but you also created a game. So you sound like a woman who has great ideas and does a lot of follow through on these. So you've created a game. What is this game?
Anger management. It's a therapy game for group therapy specifically as well. And I created it when I was at one of the mental health sweatshops, because there was a lack of support really for the work that we were doing. And I did a lot of groups at the time. And many of the people were, I mean, it was a varied crowd, but I dealt with a lot of people that are court ordered for behavioral health care, basically. And they're angry people. And so we did anger management group therapy. And I noticed that there was a lack of therapeutic tools for adults in
Mm,
like a game setting. There was a lot for kids, but I really didn't work with kids. I still don't. And it didn't translate to like adults. I also worked with people and still do with varied socioeconomic status. So at the time and even recently, I've worked with people that have minimal literacy, let's just say, where they're borderline illiterate, I would say. And so I needed something that would help engage the whole group and reinforce skills that were being taught, while at the same time making it to where anyone from any education level could use it. And so I started basically with the cheapest pieces of paper, like note cards, business cards that were from the agency, and writing out messages and typing them up and using Elmer's glue and gluing it together. It was really pathetic, actually. It was flimsy. And then over time, when I saw it was working, I had it professionalized and I actually had it printed. This is my open one, but basically this is it. So it's like an actual card game. And so the feedback was really positive and really interactive, because you have to think people don't necessarily want to be there.
mm-hmm.
And it made it to where it was a bonding experience for the group and people were really engaged and actually wanted to be there. And I haven't been able to find anything like it on the market. So that's why I developed it, because the population I work with are pretty unique. And a lot of people don't want to work with the individuals I work with, because, addiction and or anger management for adults isn't the sexiest, especially when they're involved in the criminal justice system. A lot of behavioral health clinicians, in my experience, are afraid of people that have legal problems. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I've
Great.
been in court a lot through the years. Like recently, when I worked for an employer, I had to go every week to testify about my client's progress or lack thereof. So I got really comfortable with the whole nuts and bolts of dealing with the system.
That might be a great next book for you. I was like, how as do you address core issues as a mental health professional? Because that is scary. And who has written a book about that? Like, what do you say? Like, how do you do it?
I don't know, because that almost makes me nervous, because all the state laws are so different,
That's
and
true.
then you
Yeah.
have all the different licensees, and they have all different requirements, and so yeah, that that'd be tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as straightforward as self-care, I
That's
feel like.
true. Yeah, that's true. Now, you have your own business now. How many clinicians do you have working with you?
So I am not in a group practice. I am a solo practitioner, and I have people that answer my phones 24/7. So I have an answering service that's been working out great. And then I have my software, so everything's automated, and I have those people that help me. But I'm not sure if or when I want to add more clinicians in the future. It's a huge step, that's for
Mhm.
sure. And then there's a lot of employment law regulations. Like I know, for example, that a lot of people do independent contracting for clinicians, but then that's really tricky too, because of all the requirements of how they're supposed to be treated compared, which is different than employees. So, and lately, there's this law that was passed. I forget the name of it, but basically, it was because the construction industry, I guess, there was a lot of problems with people being taken advantage of and being misclassified. I think actually the word misclassification is in the law. Anyways, misclassified as independent contractors to avoid employment taxes, but they're being treated as employees. And so all these legal things make me think long and hard about
Yes,
that decision in the future because there's a lot to it.
there
And it makes
absolutely
me
is.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, we have 12 independent contractors right now.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely it is a lot of stuff to look into before jumping into that because yeah, running it you do definitely have to run it differently because they can choose their own hours. So
Yeah,
like
how do you manage that? Like how do you handle people that are independent contractors? And because one of the kind of seems like downfalls of independent contractors would be that what if you have people that just that you need to have more oversight with, but you can't really, or they're not coming in enough. I don't know. Like, how does that work? And you're reserving office space for them?
yeah, so when they come on, we ask them like what kind of hours are you looking for? What's your ideal client? And they give us like their hours and what they want to do, and we say like, we're going to help you get those clients, but we suggest you try to get those clients too. We'll help market it, but it always is great if you're out there marketing. And
Hmm.
then, we do have a bunch of offices and we try to schedule them. And that's when it does get tricky because they do change their hours and then we're like trying to put them all in different spots and we want them to have the
Hmm.
same office so that clients aren't like freaked out because it's a different office each time.
Yeah, I
So
agree. People like their
yeah,
routines.
yes, so it does feel like the price is right sometimes when you take those prices and you put them on each one of the items and then you pull the lever and see if it's like
Hmm.
matched up. That's what it feels like sometimes. So balancing that out um, is something that you have to think about. And then, if they're like, well, I want to take this day off or that day, we just put in the contract, like, let us know 2 weeks ahead of time so we can provide coverage on the phone. Um,
Got it.
yeah. So when I did my independent contractor, I did have it reviewed by a lawyer that specializes in social work and
Oh, good.
law. Yeah. Yep.
It's
Um,
hard to find the correct lawyer for the correct job and people that are trustworthy. That's for sure.
yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there and they're not all trustworthy. So it's really good you're able to do that. I mean, I would want to do the same thing. I actually I thought about going to law school like down the road. They have part-time programs down. I don't want to be a lawyer, but I thought about doing it just because there are so many everyday situations where the law intersects with our life, whether it be professionally or personally. And it would just be helpful to know these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I walk around the office talking to myself out loud, just to kind of like work things out in my head because there's like different facets. You got the law, you got the ethics, you got, all this other stuff. And then you're a business owner in the end
Hmm.
of it all too. And like working all that out, it's really definitely trying to spin a bunch of plates at one time.
Hmm. I agree with you.
So where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? What's your big goal?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm still finishing up credentialing, so I'm have a voluntary license, which I don't have to have. It's an addiction license on top of my other one. And so I'm thinking I'll basically have it worked out whether or not I want to finish up that process or not. I have quite a few hours done, but it goes back to regulations and law. And so in the state that I'm in, I'm not from this state. And so, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of paths to get to where we're at in
Hmm.
different states. And so I wish I would have known a number of years ago what I know now. And what I know now is that there's programs out there in my state that will fast track you to get through all these regulatory requirements that I did not know about. And then, of course, the programs, that program that I went to, they don't tell you. They don't tell you anything. It's just butts in the seat money, right? And so, unfortunately, I didn't go to one of those programs. So I've taken like the world's longest routes to
Oh.
get in my state to where I need to be. And so, because of that, like for example, it requires like 4,000 hours. This one addiction license, I have about 1,000, and then there's other requirements. So I don't really. We'll see kind of how that works out. So basically, kind of figuring through that, I'll figure that'll be done, sorted out many years from now. Um, as far as the future holds, I mean, I think I would continue to have a good work-life balance because that's something that I've been really valuing since I've had my own company and something I don't take for granted at all because
Mm.
it's such a new novel concept for me. So I'm just like, oh, this is really great. Like, I'm just so excited. Like, I'm like not exhausted when I'm working with people. This is great, you know? It's just I get to like actually have a say in my working conditions. Wow, like this is amazing. So so
Yeah.
I want to continue on with that. My husband will likely be probably finishing up with the military at that point. So that'll be kind of a reevaluation of where we're going to be at as well. And probably moving closer to a larger city because right now I'm in a more, North Carolina's mostly rural. And
Hmm.
so that's been an experience in and of itself. And so probably getting more away from the rural areas, even though my company is in Raleigh, so it's a
Hmm.
bigger city. It's like big city out here. So getting away from the rural area more so most likely at some point. Don't know exactly when, but that's a thought I have in my mind for sure.
Are you thinking anything about like speaking opportunities?
Um, I haven't given it a lot of thought. No,
No,
it hasn't
no.
really. No, hasn't really like come to mind.
I'm just thinking you have a lot that you've created that you could talk about, and maybe that would something that's in your future.
Maybe. I think I'm at this point of my life too. I'm much more kind of go with the flow. I used to be really hard hitting with my goals. I still have goals, don't get me wrong, but it's not like do or die like it used to be. Like I used to be a lot more like amped up, super hyper focused about my goals. And now I'm just kind of like more go with the flow. You know, if things didn't go, you know, kind of the way I'd planned with my professional goals, I would get really upset about it. Now I'm not so much that way at all because I've accomplished really more than what I had set out to do. And so you have one goal in mind that I'd like to get accomplished 2019. And then after that, I'm just kind of like putting positive vibes out there and seeing what comes back.
Sounds like a good plan.
That's basically it.
Great. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for meeting with me today and chatting and telling us all the great things that you've been doing. We're going to put links to your products to our show notes, if that's okay.
That's
Um,
fine.
and then we'll put them on the Facebook as well, the Facebook group. And then, people will get to be able to buy those. Now, can we buy them on Amazon too?
No, I don't have a setup on Amazon. Even though I buy stuff on Amazon, I don't even know how to even do that for myself. That really confuses me.
Not
So,
even your
no.
book?
Oh, yes, sorry. The books,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
My book is published everywhere on all platforms possible.
Good.
I meant the game. I meant the therapy game. Because
Oh,
therapy
okay.
game, that's a physical product and that is that's I only have so many copies of those, so Amazon it might blow me out of the water.
Okay. Well, we'll put it on my website of resources that I love too, so people can have access to it. All right. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again.
Okay, sounds good.